I'm Janet Clark, and you are listening to the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. I am your host, Janet Clark, and I am the Sales Matchmaker. So today, I'm super excited because I'm actually going to be doing 2 episodes this week and next week, and the subject is going to be 2 counterintuitive ways to double your sales. So today, I'm going to share with you the simple secret to double your sales. And next week, I'm going to share with you the double secret to double your sales. So we're going to be letting you in on some of the insider tricks that people have used, various coaches and consultants who are in our world, people who are at higher levels and well known. And they have used these same ways that I'm going to be sharing with you. And I love doing this. It really excites me to kind of talk about these little insider secrets, things that you might not have thought of, that you might be just in the right stage of your business to hear and embrace. And sometimes when you feel like you're stuck and your business is just not going forward fast enough, you need something to jolt you out of it. And sometimes the thing that will do it is counterintuitive. It's something that you wouldn't have thought of doing. So that's why this is going to be fun over the next couple of weeks. Now, both of these methods that I'm going to share with you, which I call the simple secret, and then next week, the double secret, are ways that have worked miracles for me. So they're things that I have personally done that have really helped. And they've also worked for colleagues of mine, high-level coaches and consultants, and clients who have come into work with me. So I can vouch for these as being super credible. And, you know, it's always great to hear some new idea, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's dive into this one, which is the subject of this week's episode, which is the simple secret to double your sales. And I need to start with this premise, which is it can be really hard to sell yourself. Now, when I started out as a coach, I was already an expert in sales. I had been in sales for well over 30 years in both the corporate world and then in my own B2B sales agency. So it wouldn't seem logical that it would be difficult for me to get on a sales call and actually close the sale. But it was. I found that selling my own coaching programs was sort of had an ick factor to it. I don't really know how to explain it, in that I almost felt like I would get on these calls, and rather than being on a sales call, it was almost more like a coaching call. I couldn't help myself. I guess because I knew what my offer was. I knew my business so intimately, and I was so enthusiastic about what I was offering that I found myself going down this rabbit hole of starting to teach and coach rather than actually going through the sales call. Now, what I call sales, everybody that's listened to me for any length of time knows that to me, sales is an acronym for sharing a life-enhancing solution. So there's a way to do that, which I call the heart flow sales conversation, which really works well. But I was having trouble actually using the heart flow when I was selling my own programs. So another thing that I found was happening when I was on sales calls for my own programs was that my ego and my emotions were super tied in with the whole conversation. So I was attached very much to the outcome. I literally did not want to hear a no, and I didn't want to hear objections because they hurt my feelings, right? I was kind of starting to take it as personal rejection. And so these conversations weren't really about the other person as much as they were about me. And it was hard. Now, if you've studied the art and the science of selling, you know that there's two things that you should never do, right? And one is to start talking about the features. In other words, talking about the details of your program with a client, right? We don't want to talk about features. We want to talk about benefits. So that's a no-no. And the other thing is that will kill your sales is fear, right? That fear of rejection. And these are huge barriers to actually being able to sell your own program. And believe it or not, I encountered that early on, and it really was difficult. So I discovered by accident the simple secret to getting past both of these. And this is the counterintuitive thing that I did. And the answer is sell for someone else. Sell somebody else's coaching services, somebody who's in your industry, in your field, who is further ahead of you down the path. Not somebody that's offering the exact same thing you do to the exact same client, but maybe somebody that's selling to a higher level client, a higher level program than what you're offering. Now, believe me when I tell you that this is going to shift everything for you. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I want you to hear me out because I want to tell you how it actually worked. So what happened was that when I first started selling the Freedom Shift, I was seriously underselling my services. Okay. I literally was finding myself getting to the point where I was undercutting my prices and I was overselling my process. So that was happening on sales calls. And I was selling to the wrong clients. Because I was totally underselling, I was talking to much lower level people than I should have been. And I was bringing these people on as clients. And here's what started to happen, right? I had this total blind spot on really how to value my own work. So I knew my process from the inside out, and I truly wanted my clients to understand how I was going to help them. And literally, I would take on any client who was willing to pay me, even if they weren't a great fit. Now, what happens when you do that? Because I would have probably put money on the fact that there's a lot of you out there right now who are listening to me who are resonating with this. Number one, you know that you're not selling your programs for as much as you're worth, and you don't even know how to value your worth. Two, you're bringing on clients who are not the right fit for what you do, and they're frustrating you. And you feel like you're stuck at a certain level with your sales. So I have a feeling that you may have these things going on for you as well. So let's break this down and discuss what to do if you are stuck at this certain point with your sales and you have these things going on. Like you're undervaluing yourself, you know that you're attracting the wrong client, and you actually are working with the wrong client. So how do you value what you do? Well, part of that is what I'm going to be digging into more deeply next week. But the fact of the matter is that this idea that I just threw out to you, which you may be poo-pooing or you may be saying, are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that. But if you just open your mind to what would it be like to be selling for somebody else? And I'm going to tell you how your paradigm is going to shift once you start selling someone else's program. And as I said, it would be preferably somebody that's further down the road from you with a higher price program that's already working with higher level clients. So let me give you an example. When I started to sell for Alex Mendosian, his programs were 100K, 60K, and 30K. Now, I'm going to make a confession right here. And this is actually like super embarrassing. But when I started the Freedom Shift, my programs were $1,500. 90 days, I was showing people how to build their list. I was helping them put together their whole telesummit, getting all the technical things done for them. I mean, helping them with the whole selling concept of what they were doing. I was charging $1,500. That's 1,500. I mean, that is ridiculous because look I had been selling programs, 7-figure deals in my corporate life. When I had my own B2B sales agency, I was selling multiple 6-figure deals. And here I was in my own business, my own coaching business, selling my deals for $1,500. Now, I didn't understand how to value my own services. I truly didn't know. And the worst part was that because I was offering a lower price service, I was attracting lower level people into my program. And so there was a huge disconnect in the way I thought and in the way they thought about how they were going to launch their businesses and grow their businesses. So what happened is that after I started to look at what Alex was doing, I had this strong conviction in Alex. So I felt like his programs were certainly worth 100,000, 60,000, 30,000. I didn't have any problem with that. And as soon as I started to sell at that level, talk to clients who would actually invest that kind of money in their own business and closing those deals, my mind was just blown wide open because I actually started to realize, number one, that there were people who would invest in that level and that I could sell them for somebody else. And that, yes, Alex had been in the game longer than me. And yes, he had a different level of skill, but that I also had a very high level of skill. I started to see myself differently. Part of the reason why I started to see myself differently is because these higher level people who were buying these programs that I was selling for Alex saw me differently. They saw me as an expert. They trusted me to represent Alex. So I had aligned myself with a higher level person. And so ultimately, I was getting a different level of feedback from the people who I was talking to on the phone. Now, look, I would not have met Alex if I was not already in that world. So how did I get to be connected with him? How did I get matched up to sell with him? Well, it was because I had invested myself into a higher level coaching program where I was exposed to people like Alex. So that was a big, smart thing that I did that I didn't even know was the result, right? I had invested in a coach. It was a $12,000 program that I had invested in. And that particular coach was in the world where Alex and Ryan Levesque and those people were, and he was able to introduce me to them and connect me with them. So on my own, I probably would not have been able to connect with them and start selling for them. But because I had made that investment in my own growth, I was introduced to them. So look, I know that you may be thinking that it wouldn't make sense for you to sell for someone else. But guess what? You will accelerate your learning. You will accelerate your reputation in the market or elevate your reputation. You will gain new skills just by association with somebody who's further along the path than you are. And you'll start making fast income that you can reinvest back into your own professional development and your own business. So look, if you want to gain tons of confidence and you want to double your own sales, the best way to do that is to go out and sell a higher level program for somebody else. Now, even though I currently run my own successful sales coaching business and I have my matching program, right? I have the Freedom Shift and I have the Sales Map program, and I have the High Ticket Sales Alliance, I've never stopped selling for other people. Now, I don't do it all the time, but on any given week, I may have calls scattered throughout my calendar to sell for other coaches. Now, sometimes I do it because I'm on that person's team, and intermittently I'll do enrollments for them. And sometimes I do it as a favor to one of my colleagues. So here is an example. Now, in the past 3 days, I have closed over $65,000 in sales for the Ask Method. So we happen to be doing some enrolling right now, and I've had a sprinkling of calls. Now, I've probably been on 4 calls and sold 3 deals, something like that. The close ratio for me on those is very, very high, which is a really good ego booster for me. But there's a whole bunch of reasons why that happens, and that's a subject for another podcast episode. But number one, that brings money to me, but it also fuels me. It really helps to reinforce my confidence. So that's that. But also this week, I closed an $8,000 health coaching program sale. Now, look, I'm not a health coach. I don't really know much about the health coaching industry at all, but I do this as a favor for somebody. So somebody that has done a lot for me in my evolution of my business asked me if I would help a client of his with their sales. And part of helping them is actually taking some of these sales calls, being able to enroll people into that program, and then also providing feedback to them. So I closed a nice deal for them this week. And it was 1 call. I mean, that was great. I've also, over the past few months, closed 3 40K mastermind programs for another colleague of mine. So I've done that just because I know that he's got a great program, and I know some people who he's been talking to who I have the opportunity to reach out to and encourage to actually go forth and join that program. So these things that I do are all supporting my own initiatives. So I can make fast money doing it. I can help colleagues who I really respect and admire in the industry, and I can get a lot of good insights from these people because I get an inside look at their business, something that I wouldn't get if I wasn't on their team. So sometimes, very occasionally, I'll go to live events and I'll sell sort of at the back of the room, but really what I do is strategy sessions during the live event. And I can make tens of thousands of dollars doing that. But hey, I also get to be present at an event where I'm learning from somebody who charges thousands and thousands of dollars to have people attend that event. So I get to go there and make money and benefit from the learning. And when I tell you that when you start rubbing elbows with people who are invested in some of these other higher level programs, you start to see the potential for your own business, your own coaching business. So now, look, the commission money is great for sure. Like we all love money, right? That's why we are entrepreneurs. But there is something more awesome that happens when you make a sale. First of all, you get commission and you don't have to fulfill. So that's really cool to be able to sell something and then just turn it over. So there's a sense of freedom in that. But more importantly, there's this unseen residual benefit that is going to impact your mindset. It's going to impact your confidence. It's going to literally up-level your experience and your expert status. Just by aligning yourself with someone who is further along will do wonders for your own credibility in the marketplace. So Jim Rohn, a lot of you have heard him, right? Very well-known motivational guy. He's been around for a long time. And he has this saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, imagine what it would do for you if you started spending more time with people who are further ahead of you on this path, who are selling higher level programs, who are attracting higher level clients. All I can say is that when you do this, you are going to find out something that you do not know about yourself, and it's going to be good. So it is an experience that is definitely worth having. So believe me when I tell you that it is much easier to sell a high ticket program for someone else than it is to sell your own. Now, remember I mentioned that we can be overly sensitive about rejection, and our egos tend to get easily bruised when we're selling our own programs. Well, that doesn't happen when you're selling for someone else. You get to work on your sales skills, and you do it in a much less emotionally connected way. And you get to focus a lot more on that prospect and use the heart flow sales approach without being emotionally attached to the outcome. Plus, when you're selling for someone else who you totally believe in, you truly want to do a great job for them, but you also are very careful about who you enroll in their program. Because if you bring the wrong person into their program, then you're not helping that person and you're not helping the coach. In fact, it could kind of damage your reputation. So you're not so quick to grab for the money because somebody else is going to have to coach this person. And so people who you might say, well, I'll deal with it, you would feel differently about sending that person over into the other coach's program. So you start acting differently. You start being more discerning. Rather than trying to sell somebody on something, you do look at yourself more as an enrollment expert. And you want to make sure that this person is a good fit for the program. So it just shifts the way you think about things. Now, the other thing that you can't do when you're selling someone else's program is you can't go down that slippery slope of starting to coach them. Why? Because it's not your system and you're not the expert on it. So you don't fall into that trap. You start to recognize that you have to sell the result and you have to sell the transformation that that coach offers without getting bogged down in the process. So if somebody gets on the phone with me and they start asking me details about implementing the ask method and how they should do their deep dive survey and how they should set up their Bucket.io account, I don't have the answers to that. I'm not the expert. So I can defer those questions and get the call back on track so that we're really talking about do they know, like, and trust Ryan Levesque? Is this the mentor that they really want to follow and have guide them to grow their business? Do they have a belief that his program works? Because we know that they have to know the program works. And then I can steer the conversation back to that question that we really want to answer on a sales call, which is, will it work for me? And we know that that question comes from fear. So people who are struggling in their own security, right? Their own ability to be able to put themselves out there and make a big investment in themselves and believe in themselves. And that's what we're really doing on the sales call. So all of these dynamics change when you're selling a program that you honestly are not the expert in. And you will learn more about how to sell and sell higher ticket and sell transformation when you're selling somebody else's program. So I hope this is all making sense to you. I guarantee you it's a game changer. And you may be saying to yourself, okay, so I'd actually maybe like to do that, right? But how would I do it? Well, as you know, I am the sales matchmaker. So if this is resonating with you and you have an inkling in your mind that maybe you would like to chat about this with me, then just reach out for me. You can reach out through email, janet@thefreedomshift.com. You can reach out to me through Facebook, just send me a message. connect with me through LinkedIn. I'm there. And I'm always happy to just chat with you about any of these things that I talk about in my podcast, because I throw ideas out there that I know resonate with a lot of you. And if this one happens to be the one that you're like, yes, I want to do that, I'm actually happy to chat with you about it. And more than likely, I do have somebody that I can match you up with. So feel free to reach out, and don't forget to show up next week to hear about the secret to, I'm going to call it the double secret to double your sales. But I hope you enjoyed today's secret to double your sales. And I really appreciate you being here, and happy selling for the rest of the week. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Sales Matchmaker Podcast. To hear more episodes, visit us at www.thesalesmatchmaker.com.